this first big worldwide INCO conference, which actually regroups more than 60 countries.
Stimulate international cooperation and make it really one world, because that's our best interest. Well, the best interest of all of us, I think.
Partner with specific European countries on selected areas of priority of common interest.
How do we drive economic growth in a way which is cleaner, fairer, more equitable than the economic growth we've seen over the last few decades? How do we drive growth in a way that addresses some of the big global challenges and societal challenges that we're all facing? We think that science and technology needs to be at the core of such a new model. In the rich countries, as well as in the poor and middle-income countries, we still have some very, very serious global problems that we're just not dealing with. What is it, 17 million people dying annually of neglected and emerging infectious diseases. Big global challenges. Add to that things like climate change. We really, really need to be doing better. And science and technology has to be at the core of that doing better. In economic growth between developed and the emerging and developing countries is, who wants to guess? Innovation. So innovation is what drives growth. Innovation is what makes the difference between the size of the economies, between the GDPs in the developed and the developing economies. Innovation is what gives us a recovery. Innovation is what helps us deal with global challenges.
European research and development, the European programs are completely open to the world, and that is a very important feature of our approach. The fact that 75% of research and investment is outside the EU is not only a result of demographics, it's also a result of the fact that not enough R&D is happening in Europe, and I will show you some numbers. And you all know here about the framework program, which will deploy during the 7th framework program period just over 50 billion euros for research. Also another 50 billion euros on research and innovation. So these instruments that operate in very different ways have to be coordinated, and this is where we have a big challenge, and we've been working on this. At the same time, back in our offices in Brussels, various working groups are being set up, and we're already working, I wouldn't say full steam, but quite urgently in preparing the next framework program, because that's a long process.
Heard talk about trust earlier. I think a lot more trust about what happens among the agencies, how they develop trust within their communities and develop trust within their political organizations as well that fund them is an important consideration.
I'm from South Africa, and we have a long-standing and historical relationship with the European Union in science and technology, built on the framework program. We view the framework program as an instrument in which we have confidence in, which allows us to build long-term relations with our partners in Europe.
A framework program for the international cooperation to enhance the science and technology in the future globally.
We need to create an awareness about the importance of patent, not only at the scientist level, but even and more important at the small and medium enterprises level.
I mean, basically he says that innovation is about good ideas put to work. And you can have, in some cases, IP that's been around for a long time, but then somebody thinks of an imaginative way of using it, and you get a massive innovation.
And then, of course, you need to start asking questions or bringing together experts who drill down into those broad areas and come up with specific topics.
But it's our role as INCONETs and other activities to promote the tangible and intangible benefits for the cooperation.
If we really want to build up a lasting partnership, a permanent basis for fruitful cooperation, we have to plan working visits for all INCO projects in advance.
The cooperation could be in between brackets good for 4 countries, which are the more important one, of course, is the main actor, which are Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina, but the rest of the countries of Latin America are far behind this level of cooperation.
We think that this program is so good. The Chinese government just doing everything possible to somewhat in the cooperation help that to make this program with China within China a success.
To conclude, effective cooperation should address social issues, should generate economic value, and should draw on private sector through public-private partnerships.
At least for Ecuador, it has been very, very important since from here we have the opportunity to strengthen our relationships with another countries.
The FP7 is first of all using the possibilities of the international cooperation to raise the level of the research in my own country.
There is one point I'd like to make very clear is the sense of what are the priorities for Latin America and Central America and the priority for Europe. Usually they are not the same. So in there I believe the FP7 should consider both priorities, the one in Central America and the ones in Europe.
What they need is money. Money is there, and then simple rules and regulations. And the researcher should not bother about are my accounting rules according to some rules. They should be output-oriented and outcome-oriented and not process-oriented.
I think that FP7 is complex, but I think it's mainly complex for the coordinators, and that the management load for the coordinators is huge, so I agree. In one sense, but I don't think it's so complex for a simple partner.
So the first message, FP7 has triggered important changes in research and innovations in international cooperation. This is a reality. I mean, no one can deny this today, although it's complicated, although it's hard, but there has been some changes in international cooperation, and some of those changes have been triggered by the FP7. This is something that we cannot deny.